we have a McGrath Cup final to look forward to. So while the hurlers couldn't quite get the job done to get within reach of a Munster Hurling League final and retain their crown, the footballers will be in a McGrath Cup final this Friday night at 7:30 in Mallow. So that's changed for anyone that was thinking they'd be going to McGrath Cup final this Wednesday evening. It'll be Limerick versus Cork, a repeat of 2020. Before we get into the game itself, Limerick qualified by virtue of that draw against Tipperary. Real difficult conditions in Fethard. It looked like hailstones at one stage. I was watching online on the stream. Looked like hailstones. Tipperary got a really late goal. It looked like it would propel them through, but Cillian Fahey is a man for all weather and all occasions, and he stepped up with a crucial score, and it's becoming an norm now to see Cillian go up the field and score from midfield. But first and foremost, it's good for Limerick to be back in a final, because you know they're going to be playing Cork in the league later on this year, so a good chance to test them early on in the year.
Yeah, Jack, with the return of normality to the National League, and where Division 2 now is going to be a marathon, 7 games rather than 2 groups of 4 has been heretofore due to the pandemic over the last couple of years. It's hugely important, I think, for Ray Dempsey, especially a new manager coming in and getting to know his players and his players getting to know him and what he wants, that they have that extra game and a McGrath Cup final and the possibility of raising early season silverware. If you recall in 2020, Jack, beating Cork, was it 20 points to 16?
Yeah, it was.
In the McGrath Cup in the Gaelic grounds in Limerick was the catalyst of Limerick driving on to where they are today in Division 2, and I'm sure that Ray Dempsey couldn't possibly have got enough of game time, because certainly the configuration of the fixtures in Division 2 hadn't been very kind to Limerick. A new team coming up, handed a trip to Derry in the opening round, and playing host to Dublin in round 2. It's not a very easy start, so a lot of the boxes would want to be ticked before it, and the only way that he can get an opportunity to see what his strongest 15 is to see him in game situations. And now the Waterford game, it was a bit one-sided. Well, particularly in the second half, Waterford made a match of it in the first half, but they will have learned considerably, Jack, from the game against Tipperary, because it was nip and tuck right through, basically. Now, Limerick appeared at one stage to be in control. Tipperary came back. Limerick appeared to be on their way to be seeing out the game when they were hit by that goal, and which looked to be putting Tipperary through. And as you rightly said, but I think Limerick showed great resilience to come back, and particularly come at the hour, come at the man. Cillian Fahey, who has been one of the stalwarts of Limerick's progression from the lower depths of Division 4 to the heady heights of Division 2, and a very, very important score, which gives Limerick an extra game. And I think they will travel to Mallow with no little confidence, Jack, because I recall in 2020 going into the McGrath Cup final, Limerick footballers were written off when it was Cork or Kerry, and we tend to flippantly dismiss the so-called 4 weaker counties when they come up against the Cork or Kerry. But I think Limerick are going to Mallow on Saturday on Friday evening. Sorry, with decent chance of success. Now, Ray Dempsey used the McGrath Cup. I think there's 5 new players he introduced to senior football. Was it, Jack? With Cathal Downs, who hit the ground running with 2 goals against Waterford. We Jack Ryan of Drumculloch Broadford, hadn't we? With Brian Barry of Mungret St. Paul's.
Ruan,
Um,
and Owen O'Shea as well. So yeah,
on a
five.
share from Lee.
Yeah,
If there
you're
was that.
no, I think that's it. And you were breaking up there just as you went through it, but you mentioned one of them there, and one has definitely hit the ground, and that's been Cahill Downs. And we're no stranger to Cahill from his exploits with the underage hurling setups, but from seeing him up close and personal for KP in the football, there was no doubting he'd make that step up. But I didn't think it'd be this quick, to be honest. But he looks like one that is going to be starting the league anyway, and it's his position to lose. That he'll probably be starting come championship if he continues in this vein of form. And for Limerick, it's important to find new players, as it is for hurling. When you go up through the grades, that there's new players and new faces making their mark, and it putting pressure on players. And Cahill is very adept to play it anywhere across the front eight positions, we'll say, from midfield right into full forward line. And it's a good bonus to have this early in the year to find someone like that.
Oh, absolutely, and he has used Ray Dempsey has used some of the stalwarts sparingly so far, the likes of Ian Corbett and possibly Donald O'Sullivan, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because they have been such key players, and with such big tests coming up, we'll need to have them in.
We haven't seen Dara Tracy at all. Burke is coming back from injury. He's another one. So there are frontline players to come back yet, but to have these players hit the ground running like that, is definitely a boost for Ray this early on in the year.
Absolutely, and he will be absolutely delighted, because no doubt, when he came in, when he was doing his planning, obviously foremost in his mind would have been the trip to Derry. Let's face it.
Yeah.
But the big question was, how would he get a very good pre-season into him? And I honestly think that the pre-season has worked out exactly the way he would have wanted it. That he has got he'll have got 3 games in the month of January, which will be fantastic. Now Waterford are a bit down on their luck at the moment. Tipperary were a step up in Waterford. Cork are going to be a step up again in Tipperary. It's ideal preparation going into to Derry, which would be a step up again. So it has worked out very, very well, and Limerick have used the McGrath Cup judiciously to find themselves in the position that they are in now at the moment, where they're facing into a final on Friday evening. Ideal preparation for going to Derry a week later.
Yeah, I suppose it's double-edged as well. In a win would give you huge confidence going into that Derry game, and a loss probably wouldn't change much going into Derry. But when Limerick meet Cork again in later on in the year, that they'd have that edge over them. Like, bar that McGrath Cup win in 2020, would you go back as far as 2003 to the last time Limerick beat Cork?
You'd go back. That was in the Munster Championship down in Cork. You go back a long way.
So wins over Cork are few and far between. So it'll be
that's the point I'm making, Jack, and that's the point I was making about there's a kind of there's a narrative out there that when one of the 4 so-called weaker counties meet Cork or Kerry, that's kaput, that's the end of it, but thankfully that's not the case. Tipperary struck a blow for that in 2020. Limerick did it first in the McGrath Cup when they beat Cork in the final, and Tipperary followed it up by beating Cork in the Munster final. So, so-called weaker counties, the gap is closing, Jack. Now, all right, you could say last year's Munster final would have shown that there is still a chasm, but certainly I think it was a day which Limerick probably didn't do themselves justice.
No, and Kerry were on a mission as well, and look, their mission was to win All Ireland, and they went out and did it. And to be fair, they're a step ahead. There's no doubt in that. Dublin are the same, and there's probably then a little group of Galway, Derry, Mayo, them kind of teams, Armagh. But you'll be hoping Limerick can get up to where Cork are at the moment, Clare, those teams, Roscommon on the fringes, and they'll have to in Division 2 with all those teams to come. But good start so far.
Look, like it's fantastic. We're focusing on Derry, and we're focusing on Dublin, but we have the Meads and the Kildares of this world as well. We're rubbing shoulders with them, Jack. Like I put it to you 5 years ago, Jack, when Limerick were down in the depths, picked up 3 points in the whole Division 4 campaign from a draw with London and Ruislip and a fortuitous win over Waterford in Martinstown. The sum total of their league was 3 points from 7 games.
Yeah,
Jack, we've come a long, long way with two promotions, a McGrath Cup win, a Munster final appearance. It's a fair transformation, Jack.
Oh, it is, and long may that continue. And the best of luck to the Limerick side against Cork in the McGrath Cup final this Friday night at 7:30.